Bella Chow, dear teachers, just want to share the concept of business model from one of my class in entrepreneurship. And to my new students in ABM, let us start learning.
Before we go any further, let us review what we should already know through this video. Straighten up, be still, watch, and listen.
So, the first step in identifying business opportunities is step one to identify the needs and wants of people. Okay, so, if we want to further expound on this concept when it comes to business opportunities, we would want, of course, to review the things that you have learned in applied economics, PR1, 2, and inquiries, and of course, principles of marketing. So let's have applied economics. Do you still remember the discussion about the principle of diminishing marginal utility? So what does it mean? It means that if we no longer want a particular service or product, we lose interest of it. So when the particular product or service is no longer a need or a want for us, we loses our interest. And this is the concept of the principle of diminishing marginal utility. And that is the reason why we consume. Of course, we consume money. We spend money for our particular needs and wants. Okay, so it always depends, according to applied economics, it always depends on the principle of marginal utility. As long as we feel the need of a particular product or service, as long as we find it beneficial to us, we will look for it, avail of it, and buy it. Okay, so that is for applied economics. Let's move on to PR, 1, 2, and of course, inquiries. Of course, you know already that we cannot make a particular research if we don't identify a problem. Okay, and this problem emanates from the needs and wants of course, people. So, moving on to the principles of marketing. In the principles of marketing, basically, we discuss, or your principal in or your teacher in principle of marketing discusses about, of course, on the consumer behavior. In principles of marketing, we focuses on the consumer behavior, and but of course, even though it's on the behavior of the consumer, we still look deeper into the needs and wants of people. Okay, it says here that the process and activities people engage in when searching for, selecting, purchasing, using, evaluating, and disposing of products and services as to satisfy their needs and wants. And in principles of marketing, basically, it's all about consumer behavior. Okay, so from the consumer behavior, of course, to further just to further explain, we also have the consumer responses, and this is how we find the consumer, how we define or how we segment consumers in terms of prospect consumers, current customers rather, and the consumers versus the business buyers. Of course, there is a difference between the business buyers and the consumer themselves. Okay, the next is, after that, we identify that all consumers are human. And since we are all human, we are affected by the social cultural factors, social class, and the reference group. And this is what we call the demographics. And from the demographics, we are able to identify the upper class, the middle class, the working class, the upper, lower, and of course, the lower class. So this is how we identify the products and services that most companies produces for the particular needs and wants of people. And finally, we have also the concept of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, crafted or produced by Abraham Maslow. Okay, that is in 1943. So it says there that we have five particular needs that we need to satisfy. And it says in that particular theory that we needed to satisfy first the physiological need, and then going up to the safety, belongingness, esteem, and of course self-evaluation, self-actualization. You cannot move on to the next need not unless the bottom part or the physiological need, what your body needs, is well satisfied. And you will see on the opposite side of the needs, you will see the marketing and the IMC implications. These are actually the products and services that most companies produces for for them to be able to answer a particular need of people. This is very general, of course. When it comes to physiological, you have here water, sleep, food, and shelter. So for companies to produce a particular product or services for that, these are just the example: survival necessities, utilities, medicines, and basic food products. Once the physiological need is satisfied, you then move up to the safety. So, how do you feel secure in this time and age? Of course, you need to have your insurance. Your house should have alarm systems. Your teeth, should have protection, of course. And then for your retirement, when you come of age around 60, you should have a retirement or investment. Okay, that would secure you for the rest of for the rest of your lives. Ayan. And then after the safety need, once it is satisfied, you move on to the belongingness. So what are the products and services? Examples are lifestyle products, the clothing, the grooming aids, your makeups, restaurants, and of course, clubs. Ayan. So after you have satisfied that, you move up to the STEAM stage for the prestige, status, accomplishment, respect, and of course, recognition. And that's the reason why most people would buy particular cars. Cars will appeal to them. Ayan. So also the preferences for the furniture, the upscale electronics, the country clubs, liquor, and of course, first class restaurants, bars, etc. Now, after the STEAM stage has been satisfied, you move up to the self actualization. This has something to do with your self fulfillment, your creative expression. And what are the products and services that companies would usually provide for people? This is to promote the enriching experiences of travel, education, and hobbies. So that's the reason why people go to Baguio, go to Hong Kong. The reason why people would want to have more trainings and seminars, finish a master's degree or a PhD. Okay, so moving on with the Maslow's hierarchy of needs is another Maslow's hierarchy of needs. After 2000, it was actually updated because of course, ang needs kasi ng tao, mga bata, it has something to do with, it evolves, ayan, sorry, it evolves. The needs and wants of people evolves um, with the kind of society that we have. Of course, we have a very developed society right now as before in 1990 or 1970s. So before, during those times, wala pang computers, but now we already have. So people's needs and wants change. Ayan. So after the deficiency needs, yung kanina diniscuss natin na five, we now have the growth needs. So yung cognitive needs. So this has something to do with enrichment of the minds. and then the aesthetic needs, beautification, the self-actualization, which I was able to explain to you a while ago, and transcendence. This is something to do with um, how you have a personal relationship with your faith, okay, whoever your God is. Okay. Environment scanning, self-evaluation, and community value norms is the number two step in business opportunities. When we say environmental scanning, we scan the environment through micro and macro. When we say micro, we analyze the basic elements in the economy, including individual agents and markets, their interactions and the outcomes of these interactions. Individual agents may include, for example, households, firms, buyers, and sellers. The micro analyzes the entire economy, meaning aggregated production, consumption, savings, and investments, and issues affecting it, including unemployment of resources, labor, capital, and land, inflation, economic growth, and the public policies that addresses these issues, monetary, fiscal, and other policies. The second consideration in step two is self-evaluation. Okay, in self-evaluation or the evaluation for the companies should have two things. One is the PESO, which is to analyze, to self-evaluate the stakes that or the risks that they are going to face in terms of politics, economics, social, technological, legal, and of course, environment. And this pertains to the outside concerns of the company. When we self evaluate in terms of what is inside the company, we do the SWOT analysis. Okay, because we would like to look into our strength and of course weaknesses for us to be able to strengthen it, to use it, to combat and lessen the impact of the threats and be able to grab the opportunities that we see along the way. Okay, so that is for the self-evaluation. The community values and norms pertains to the inside and outside stakeholders of the company. When we say inside, these are the employees. And when we say outside, these are the stakeholders outside the organization. So the community or the organization should make sure that it does not jeopardize the values and its norms when it comes to interacting with its outside stakeholders. And these are the concepts that we have learned during our applied economics class. Okay, so step three is screening of the business opportunities. There are four factors here, the four factors that we need to consider when we look into the business opportunities. So number one is legality. We, of course, don't want any legal or illegal transaction for that matter. And so we have to consult with a lawyer. Every company should have a corporate lawyer. If not, and of course, most of the time, this is more applicable to big companies, even small companies can do have consultations with a lawyer. It is imperative and it is important. Okay, so for us to be guided as entrepreneurs on the legality of whatever matter in business opportunities that we would want to go into. And next is the risk. Risks, of course, is inevitable. Whatever we go for any particular endeavor, there is always risk. There is no perfect situation for that matter. There is no situation that is all good. There is always risk. There is always, bad things would happen. And as an entrepreneur, you should be able to be ready with these risks. So you have to be financially, emotionally, and mentally prepared for the risk that has to come along with the business opportunities. Next is monopolistic power or the level of competition. Here it is very important that you go head to head of competition with the same company. You cannot go head to head with competition with a big company if you are a small company. So a small company in competition with small company, medium company in competition with the medium enterprise, and the big companies with the big corporations, of course. So examples, Jollibee and McDonald's. Okay, so there are two big companies or big players in our retail trade area as a whole in the Philippine market. So they are in competition. Next and the last is the capital requirements. Capital requirements, of course, has something to do with our financial capabilities, our resources. This is one of the four, the most, I believe, and I consider the most important in consideration. Why? Because if you don't have the money, there's nothing to compete with. If you don't have the money, nothing to consult legal for. And if you don't have the money, you don't have to think about risks. So it is very important that you are prepared financially. Okay, so that's it. Thank you.
The term business plan refers to a company's plan for making a profit. It identifies the products or services the business plans to sell and any anticipated expenses. Its identified target business models are important both for new and established businesses.